Hey everybody, this is Alex from the COGEL Marketing and Communications Committee. I'm doing a series of videos here interviewing people who have been honored with COGEL Awards. This is in recognition of the fact that COGEL is having its 50th anniversary this year. Not the 50th conference, that'll be in a few years, but its 50th anniversary, which we will be celebrating this December in Los Angeles when we all meet at the annual conference. So the person I'm interviewing today is the one and only Pual Nick, the executive director of the Ohio State Ethics Commission. And if you've ever been to Ethics Update, this is 50% of the people who leads that effort. Paul, I'm so glad to have a couple of minutes with you today. Welcome.
Thanks, Alex. Well, thank you.
You're the executive director of the Ohio State Ethics Commission. How long have you been doing that?
I've been the executive director, Alex, since 2011, but I've been with the Ethics Commission since 1995.
1995. Wow. Wow. So I've also
I guess I found a career.
Yeah, well, I wanted to ask you about that. So how did you get into it? Like, what did you know you wanted to get involved in ethics?
No, actually, not at all. Actually, I mean, my undergraduate was in economics and I minored in philosophy. But aside from that, I started out as a prosecutor in the city of Columbus, and I was asked to prosecute an ethics case while I was a city prosecutor. And that was my first introduction to the Ohio Ethics Commission. And I guess I did a decent job because then they asked me if I was interested in applying for a position as their investigative counsel. And that started my career at the Ethics Commission, and I haven't looked back since.
Wow. Wow. And so I feel similarly, like I kind of happened into my work in ethics, not intentionally, but I also feel really lucky that I did. What do you think kept you here so long?
The work, the people, it's something that matters. It's meaningful. I feel like you're making a difference, which everybody wants to do, and it's kind of a cliche. But I think when you're in the ethics, campaign finance, lobbying, regulation fields, that's exactly what you do every day. These are things that really matter to democracy. They matter to the people involved, the complainants, the respondents, and I find it professionally very satisfying and challenging.
And you've got a huge geographic area to cover. I always think of like I'm always thinking like, oh, my agency, the New York City Conflict of Interest Board, we're a pretty big game in town because we've got like, I don't know, 300,000 public servants, but you guys have far more than that in the Ohio State Ethics Commission, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we have 88 counties throughout the state of Ohio, and we estimate over 600,000 folks under our jurisdiction, which includes everybody from the governor, all the constitutionally elected office holders, all their staff, boards and commission members, city, county, villages, townships, officials, anybody full-time, part-time earning a public salary is subject to the Ohio ethics laws.
Wow. Wow. That's so your training director, who I know well, Susan Wilkie, she's got a work cut out for her in terms of reaching all those people.
Oh, absolutely. She's done a fantastic job, as folks who know her and have seen her in that regard. And she's not only in terms of going out and doing in-person presentations, but also really enhancing our online presence with e-courses and so forth. And that's something that as director, I appreciate, because we would much rather help folks make the right decisions than have to undo or figure out what they did and determine whether or not it needs to be prosecuted. So we're very, very focused on compliance and helping people make the right decisions.
Yeah, my old boss, Mark Davies, who was the executive director.
I know Mark.
Yeah, you know Mark. He was my boss when I first started here a long time ago, and he would talk about really what we're focused on is prevention. We're focused on education. Like the people who come to us are like the best of the best because like they're public servants who are trying to do the right thing. And even an enforcement case in that context is educational. Arguably, so that people can learn from that mistake and not make it themselves. When did you start getting involved with COGEL?
My first year, David Friel was the executive director who hired me, and he invited me to attend the conference in 1996. And I, at first, like a lot of folks, attended some meetings. I was a little intimidated. I see all these experts and experienced folks, and I wondered if I could ever be as talented or skilled or informed and communicative as they. But what really impressed me was the quality of the conferences even then. I mean, not to say that they were different, but what was interesting to me is that I could actually participate in discussions. And I was invited to do, after a couple of years of being involved in attending the conferences, I was invited to do some breakfast topics, which I just thought were a blast. So that's one of my funnest things at the COGEL conference to do, is to sit down and have an unscripted, somewhat focused, topically at least, discussion with my peers.
Ethics Update, which is like a huge pillar every year of the COGEL conference that you handle with my friend Steve Berlin. Can you talk a little bit about how you got involved in that?
Sure. It was, again, David Friel, when he retired, he had been doing the update, and the program committee asked if I'd be willing to assist with it. And I did, and been continuing to do it ever since. It's a lot of fun to do. I enjoy researching and finding out what other jurisdictions are doing. It's been candidly helpful to me in my work here at the Ethics Commission when we make legislative proposals, to be able to inform my commissioners and sometimes members of the General Assembly of what other jurisdictions are doing and whether or not Ohio's laws should be changed or modified. Or for that matter, sometimes I get contacted by folks in other jurisdictions new to the ethics world in terms of having regulations and laws in place and asking about best practices.
Yeah, it's nice to see when you guys, you and Steve are up there kind of giving us some of the tasty cases that have happened over the year, and then all of a sudden somebody from that jurisdiction like pops up and they can give us like the story on the ground sort of point of view. Those are nice moments. And I think really helpful. You know, Susan has been, she's spearheading this effort this year to sort of collect different kinds of enforcement stories from different jurisdictions at the conference. And we're hoping to turn that into a bit of a resource that training people across the country can use. Now, tell me about your roles at COGEL. You've been on the what we call now the board of directors, used to be called the steering committee, correct?
Yes, I've been on the steering or board of directors twice. One was to fill a year of a vacated term, and then the other was for a full year. I've served as treasurer, president, various committees. I've been very active with the membership committee and the nominating committee, as well as there's a model law committee a number of years back. I was part of that. We tried to create a law that would be used for folks that could be used across jurisdictions. That was a very challenging project, which we were unable to finalize for various reasons. And otherwise, and I've presented at various conferences in different roles as a panelist, as a moderator, and of course now primarily in the ethics update. And that again, I started about when I became director in 2012.
You started coming in 96, like basically the year after you started at the Ohio State Ethics Commission. So that's a long time. You've seen COGEL sort of change over these. I mean, that's almost 30 years. Is there anything that stands out to you in seeing like where you started and where we are now in that 30 years?
I think the conferences themselves have become longer in terms of and having more content than they used to in the past. And I think that's a credit to the program committee and the various chairs and co-chairs over the years. I think they've really worked hard with the steering committee, now the board of directors, to provide a very large quality sessions for folks to attend in different fields. And I think there's also been more of an effort to try to cover all the different jurisdictions. It used to be you'd have a conference where it's primarily ethics focused, or it'd be heavy on campaign finance or lobbying. Now we try to cover all tracks and all the major disciplines, the 5 main disciplines of COGEL, which is new. And I think also the starting and making the Sunday day a really full session as well. It used to be that the Sunday sessions were kind of light in content, but that's not so the case anymore. The other thing too is the organization is trying to work outside of just being a conference organization. I mean, when I was president, that was something that we talked about a lot on the then steering committee, was providing more value, value to the membership in the organization. I think we've done a lot to do that, such as like what you mentioned, coming up with resources, educational resources, video vignettes, and so forth that folks can share and utilize. And of course, the blue books too. We used to only have a couple of blue books. Now we have more. So again, I think that the organization has worked really hard. And I have to credit our new directors too of the organization. They've definitely enhanced the quality of our programming, the quality of our conferences, quality of our interaction with them as members as well. And they've done a fantastic job.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more about that. Okay, so now let's talk about you here just for a second. It was 2022 Outstanding Service Award. Can you just share with me a little bit, like maybe what it was like, either that moment when you received it, or maybe the moment when you knew you were going to receive it? What was going on with you?
It honestly is one of the highlights of my professional career. I mean, being recognized by your peers, the few people who really understand what we do day in and day out, because there are so few professionals who really understand the challenges that we face, right? And to have my peers say, hey, we appreciate the work that you've done with the COGEL organization. I almost got choked up actually during the speech. I purposely didn't script a speech. I wanted to try to just make it organic and so forth. And after I heard, Steve give his introduction and everything else, I seriously came close to choking up, but I pushed through. But no, I have a wall in my office, and if I could easily do it without being too distracting, I'd move my camera around. But you'll see that the COGEL Service Award is in the center of my wall of plaques. That's how much it means to me.
I also thank you for your service and also for welcoming me in when I was just, I was invited on the program committee and I didn't really know anybody yet. But it was a real thrill to work with everybody and make that conference happen. So look, Paul, thanks for your time today. Thank you for your contributions to COGEL. And I really look forward to catching up with you in December.
Me too. See you there, Alex.
All right. See you there.